Hey, it's Mr. Zombie. Tonight's story isn't about monsters or ghosts. It's about a quiet street, a broken family, and one Halloween night that should have been just another tradition. But something happened on Hollow Street, something no one in that town ever talks about again. Turn off the lights, make sure your doors are locked, and listen closely, because this story could have happened anywhere.
The night of Hollow Street. Hollow Street was the kind of place where nothing ever really happened. 8 houses, one narrow road, and a dozen people who knew too much about each other. Every Halloween, kids from other parts of town came here because it was quiet, safe, and every porch had pumpkins glowing in orange rows like sentinels. But that year, something felt wrong. It started with a sound, a low, dragging shuffle of footsteps on the asphalt. It wasn't the usual rush of children running from house to house. It was slower, steady like someone who had nowhere else to go. At 7:43 p.m., Mark Dinsley, a mechanic in his 40s, opened the door with a bowl of candy in his hand. "Trick or treat," came a small voice. Mark smiled. The boy was short, maybe 10, wearing a cheap skeleton costume with a cracked plastic mask. Nothing unusual, except for one thing. The bag he carried was empty. Not just light, empty, like he hadn't visited a single house yet. "You're the first one tonight?" Mark asked. The boy nodded. "I started here." Mark poured a handful of candy into the bag. It made no sound when it landed. No rustle of plastic. Just silence. When the boy turned to leave, Mark noticed something on the kid's sleeve. A dark, sticky patch that caught the porch light for a second. "Hey, you okay, kid?" he asked. The boy stopped, but didn't turn around. "My mom said I could come back if I filled the bag," he said quietly. And then he walked off into the fog. At 8:05, the Hollow family next door heard tapping at their window. Not knocking, tapping. Rhythmic, patient. Mrs. Hollow thought it was a branch at first, until she saw a face in the glass. The same cheap skeleton mask, eyes too still, watching. Her husband went out with a flashlight, muttering about damn teenagers. The boy was gone. Only footprints in the damp leaves, small, and heading toward the old Miller house at the end of the street. The one boarded up since the fire. Inside, the Hollow's teenage daughter, Lily, was filming TikToks in her room. The camera caught something no one saw that night. A reflection in her window. For 3 seconds, a small skeleton face appeared behind her shoulder. No movement, just staring. By 9 p.m., most houses had gone dark. But Mark couldn't shake the feeling. He sat in his chair, scrolling through his phone, when the doorbell rang again. He opened it. Nothing. Only the candy bowl he'd left outside was overturned. On the doormat, written in melted chocolate letters, were 3 words. "Fill the bag." He stared at them for a full minute before realizing his hands were trembling. He slammed the door shut, locked it, and turned off the lights. But as he walked back to the couch, the TV turned on by itself. The static flickered for a second, then showed something else. His own front porch live. And standing there, looking straight into the camera, was the boy in the skeleton mask. The bag was still empty. Mark froze in front of the TV. The camera feed wasn't from any security system he owned. He didn't even have cameras. Yet, there was his front porch, the cracked pumpkins, the flickering motion light, and that small figure standing perfectly still. He fumbled for the remote and turned the TV off, but the sound didn't stop. It was still there, the static hum, faint and endless, coming from somewhere inside the house. He followed it into the kitchen. The radio on the counter, unplugged, was whispering through dead air. Every few seconds, a word flickered through. "Candy, bring home." He yanked it from the wall anyway, threw it in the sink, and stood there in silence, waiting for his pulse to calm. Then a knock. 3 short, polite knocks. Mark peeked through the window beside the door. The porch was empty, but down the street, he could see movement, a flashlight beam cutting through the fog. Lily Hollow's dad, carrying a bat in one hand, walking toward the old Miller place. Lily sat on her bed, headphones on, rewatching her TikTok recording. She noticed the reflection this time, the pale face, the hollow eyes behind her shoulder. She paused it, her fingers trembling over the screen. She replayed the clip. At first, nothing. Then, just before the face vanished, the reflection blinked. She threw her phone onto the blanket, heart hammering. Then came the scratching sound. Not at the window this time, at her closet door. She stared at it, frozen. A slow drag of something sharp across wood. Then a whisper, muffled but unmistakable. "Fill the bag." Down the street, Mr. Hollow's flashlight flickered. The Miller house was dead silent, the windows still black with soot from years ago. He remembered the night it burned. The fire had started on Halloween, 13 years earlier. The family's son, Tommy Miller, never made it out. He was 10, the same age as the boy in the mask. He stepped onto the porch. The door creaked open before he touched it. Inside, the smell of burned wood and damp carpet filled the air. The beam of his flashlight caught a child's drawing pinned to the wall. A stick-figure family, the edges singed. At the bottom, written in shaky crayon letters, "Mom said I can come back if I fill the bag." Then the beam caught something else, a small plastic mask lying in the ashes. Back at Mark's house, the static came again, this time from his phone. He picked it up, and the screen was black except for a single text message from an unknown number. "Envelope with Thero, thank you for the candy." Then another one. Envelope with Thero, still empty. He dropped the phone. The lights flickered once, twice, then all went dark. In the silence, he heard it again, that slow, dragging shuffle on the porch. And then the sound of something heavy dropping onto the floor outside his door. He opened it, slowly, flashlight trembling. The boy was gone. Only the empty candy bag remained, standing upright. It was full now, not with candy, but with something that moved inside. Mark didn't touch it. He just stepped back, shaking, whispering to himself, "It's just Halloween. It's just a kid." But then the bag began to breathe. Mark stumbled backward, eyes fixed on the bag. It rose and fell slowly, like lungs. A faint, wet sound came from inside, a mix of sucking and whispering, as if the thing within was trying to form words. His instinct screamed at him to leave, but something kept him rooted. Maybe guilt, maybe fear, maybe both. He crouched slightly, whispering, "Hey kid, are you in there?" The bag twitched. Then a voice, impossibly small, came through the layers of fabric. "Not yet." He leapt back, slamming the door, locking it 3 times. His chest was pounding so hard he could hear it echo in the walls. The bag outside began to drag across the porch, its movement slow but determined, scraping like nails across wood. Then it stopped. At the same time, in the hollow house, Lily's closet door opened by itself. No sound, no creak. It just slowly swung open. The inside was dark, but the smell that came out wasn't dust or clothes. It was burnt sugar and something metallic. Her phone buzzed. A message from her friend Anna. "Envelope with Thero. You see the weird kid outside?" Then another, before she could reply. "Envelope with Thero. He's looking at your house." Lily ran to the window. Outside, through the fog, she could make out a small figure standing on the street. The same skeleton costume, the same empty eyes. The bag, dragging behind him, left a dark streak on the pavement. She blinked once. The boy was suddenly closer. She blinked again. Closer still, at the edge of her lawn. Then the power went out. Mr. Hollow, still inside the Miller house, found a small photo frame half buried under debris. It showed the Millers before the fire. The mother, the father, and a smiling boy holding a Halloween pumpkin. Behind the glass, something scratched inside the photo. We held it up to the flashlight. A shadow moved within the printed image. The boy's smile began to fade. Then a whisper right behind him. "You took my candy." He spun around. The hallway behind him was empty, except for a trail of melted chocolate leading toward the back door. He followed it outside, where fog swallowed everything beyond a few meters. On the porch, he saw movement, a small hand reaching up from behind a pumpkin. Hey, it's okay," he said softly, stepping closer. But when he bent down, the pumpkin's carved mouth wasn't hollow. Inside was a face, burned, still grinning. At Mark's house, the bag had stopped moving. He forced himself to look again. It was standing upright, tied shut. Something wet seeped from the bottom, forming a dark puddle that spread across the boards. He grabbed his phone, shaking, and dialed 911. The call connected, but what he heard wasn't the operator. It was the boy's voice. "You filled it wrong." Then the call cut. The phone screen glitched, showing the same porch camera feed again. But this time, it wasn't live, it was recorded. The timestamp said, October 31st, 2010. 13 years ago, the night of the Miller fire. Mark stared at the screen as the image cleared. A boy in a skeleton costume was knocking on the same door. His door, and the man who opened it wasn't him. It was Tommy Miller's father. The recording froze, and a new message appeared on his phone. Envelope with arrow. Now it's your turn. Outside, the bag moved again, but this time it wasn't breathing. It was crawling. Mark couldn't move. The bag crept across the porch, leaving a trail like blood diluted by rain. Each slow drag echoed inside the house. It reached the door, stopped. Then something inside began pushing outward, stretching the fabric until it almost tore. He backed away, his hand trembling over the doorknob to the basement. He didn't even realize he was opening it until the cold air hit him. The smell of earth and old metal. The sound of the bag stopped. Silence. Then from inside the house, 3 knocks coming from the basement door behind him. He froze. The sound came again, deliberate, spaced apart. He whispered, "Who's there?" A child's voice answered from below, soft and wet, as if spoken through a mouth full of dirt. "You left the light on." Mark slammed the basement door shut, pressed his back against it, and slid down to the floor. His phone buzzed again, a notification from his camera feed. The porch view flickered on. The boy was gone. The bag gone too. Then the screen changed to a new angle. The basement steps. And halfway up, barely lit by the single dangling bulb, was the candy bag. Upright. Full. Across the street, Lily Hollow stumbled through her dark house, flashlight shaking in her hand. "Dad?" she whispered, her voice echoing down the empty hall. No answer. She reached the living room and saw the front door open, fog rolling inside. On the floor, her dad's flashlight, still on, beam aimed toward the window. Next to it lay his jacket, soaked in something black. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from an unknown number. "Envelope with arrow. He filled it for me." She dropped the phone. It landed screen up, flashing one last image before it went dark. A photo of her father, kneeling, holding an open candy bag. Behind him, a shadow of a small boy. Back at Mark's house, the basement light flickered out. He could hear the steps, soft, sticky, uneven, coming up from below. He grabbed the kitchen knife from the counter and pointed it at the door. Each step came slower, slower, then stopped right behind the door. He waited. Nothing. Then, a whisper right beside his ear. "You didn't knock." The lights exploded back on. The door creaked open by itself. The bag lay on the top step again, still. He approached it slowly, knife shaking. Inside, under the torn fabric, he could see movement. Not hands, not a face. Something small, dozens of something, shifting like worms. He dropped the knife. When the bag finally tore open, it wasn't candy that spilled out. It was photographs, burned around the edges, hundreds of them. All the people from Hollow Street. Every face smiling. Every person still alive. Except for one new photo on top, Mark's own. And below it, in childish handwriting, "Thank you for the candy, Mr. Densley." By sunrise, Hollow Street was empty. Every house, every light dark. The pumpkins still burned, their grins melted into ash. Only one thing remained, an empty candy bag, standing in the middle of the road, the wind whispering through it like breath. And from inside the bag, faintly, a voice. Still empty. The end.